Well, hi, James from Mortgage Choice in Miami, Burleigh, Palm Beach and Brisbane's Bayside. We've been here before, we've been on the couch, and today we're welcoming Mr. Mark Eaves.
Thanks, James. Nice to be here.
Thank you very much. Now, this is obviously not our couch. This is Black & Young's couch, or Black & Young's boardroom, and there's some amazing pictures behind us of Burleigh Heads and the whole area over the last sort of 100 years. So it's quite surprising as you look around seeing what we've got here. So, look, without further ado, thanks for accepting the invite.
No, you're most welcome, James.
Let's if we start realistically, when did you first come to the Gold Coast, Mark?
I'm a Tasmanian by birth, but moved to the Gold Coast in 1973.
1973, and you told me a little earlier you actually got your first house in 75.
Up in Mermaid Waters in Alec Avenue, yeah, brand new, spec home.
So is that a dry block or a wet block?
That was a dry block. Yeah.
And for the listeners, how much did you pay for that, Mark?
That was $29,500, James.
Wow.
It seemed like a massive amount at the time.
So now, if we look to that same block of land today on Alec Avenue, what would that now go for?
You'd be looking just under $1 million in this market. Yeah.
So under $1 million. So that's a considerable difference. So you were born in Tasmania, and you moved here 73. First house 75. What was your very first car though? Because this has been an interesting bone of contention between the real estate agents in Burleigh. So what was your first?
My first car was a 1964 Holden panel van.
You're joking.
With a mattress in the back and down the surf. We used to surf out of Hobart.
Dane, how many have we had?
Probably about 5 or so.
I think Scott Bonnywell had a panel wagon.
Well, Scott's from Hobart too.
Yeah, I honestly think there would be about 5 or 6 all had panel wagons. That's unbelievable.
$1,000 it cost me.
Wow, it's hilarious that there's such a popular car.
Oh, so they were.
So what? Okay, so Holden panel wagon. What colour was it? Did you say?
Yeah, it was a light blue.
Light blue. All right.
Yeah.
So there's other names for the wagon, but we won't use that one because it's probably not good for the social media. But
correct.
What's your favourite sports team?
Look, I've been a fanatical St Kilda AFL supporter since I was a boy.
Okay.
The players came down to Hobart and they had to get together with the kids, and I've supported St Kilda since the early 60s.
Wow. So there's a threat. They're talking about doing a Tasmanian team, aren't they?
They are, and they're really pushing it at the moment, and it deserves it. A lot of great players.
Because Hawthorn go down, don't they now?
Hawthorn and North Melbourne.
Yeah.
And St Kilda used to.
Okay, so that's where. So you've still been you're an avid St Kilda supporter.
I am, but I am a member at the Suns. I'm an inaugural member at the Gold Coast Suns, and I've been a member every year and support them as well, being a local team.
Feel a bit more hopeful about the Suns moving forward. I think they're improving, and each season they seem to be getting a bit more depth about them. And
yeah, I follow them closely, and I think this could be their chance to make the 8 this year.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of cartons of beer on it actually. I've doubled or nothing from last year with my father-in-law and my brother-in-law in Melbourne. So he's an avid Bombers supporter and a St Kilda supporter.
Ah, yeah.
So we've actually interviewed Michael Riscatelli
Yes,
on here.
Brisbane player, great player.
Brisbane player. So we interviewed him on the couch when he first started to go and do a bit of real estate. So,
okay, right.
Yeah, so that was good. So what? I first saw your name on a valuation. So we're obviously a mortgage broking business. We order valuations. So I saw a valuation, and on it was Mark Eaves. So is this where you started? Did you start valuing? Is that where you began in this industry?
I got my degree, Bachelor of Business, in 1992.
Okay.
And then qualified as a valuer about 1994 and commenced working as a residential valuer in the mid-90s.
So you would have gone through some phenomenal growth here on the coast.
Oh, like a unit back then was 70,000.
Wow.
And it's just been snowballed since.
Oh, there was no, like the Robina was Robina, when was Robina?
No,
built?
Varsity Lake Robina. There was no Christian Avenue right out to the Robina village. That wasn't there. So it's just filled in recent years.
What was Bermuda Street there? Was any of those items?
Bermuda has been there. That was the connection road to Southport to move away from the Gold Coast Highway.
Mm-hmm.
But when I moved here, there was 75,000 people on the Gold Coast.
Wow! And we're near what, 575,000?
Closer to 700,000 now.
Wow, it's huge,
Yeah.
massive difference. It's a different city now.
Oh, it is. It's grown up for sure.
So you moved into the commercial real estate space here at Black and Young, and that's 7 years ago.
With Adam Young at Black and Young,
Yeah.
7 years ago.
So we've not really ever sat down with somebody in the commercial space before. We've talked to residential real estate agents. We've also spoken to Abby Buckingham, a property manager, but we've never actually spoken to a commercial real estate agent. So for just mums and dads and for, general public, what is the big difference between a commercial real estate agent and a residential real estate agent?
It's more about facts and figures and your return on your investment with commercial properties.
So you're kind of saying you're removing the emotional, there's less of the emotional side, it's more about the mathematics, yeah?
That's for sure. You still get that emotion in there, but not as much as with a wife involved with a kitchen and a lounge room, etc.
Yeah.
It's much more straightforward, and you're looking to get the best bargain for the seller when you're acting for the seller, and you're using the mathematical side of it.
So you're looking at percentage turnover, like a profit that you're getting per year, as in your yield, if you like. They're the important sort of factors you're looking at.
For a tenanted property, you're looking at the yield.
Yeah.
So your net income with a commercial property, you've got the tenant paying a net figure plus GST plus the outgoings, and that's a big difference in commercial leasing. That the tenant is paying the outgoings, which they don't do in a residential.
And does it depend on the type of tenant and what outgoings they'll pay?
The outgoings depend on what that particular, in a unit scenario, what the outgoings are for that unit complex. It might be 4 units, 4 commercial units. It might be 12.
Right.
It's the state of the buildings and how much.
And then they split that across each of the tenants.
It's divided between the tenancies. They're rates, water, and body corporate.
I've even seen some where land tax can be passed on.
Land tax can be passed on in the present market. However, it's not done very often because it does put the rental often out of the reach of the potential lessee.
Yeah. And
it's only used sparingly, but it may be implemented more in the future.
I suppose with the commercial premises as well, we talked about less emotion. I suppose when you go into a commercial building, you go to West Burleigh here, you're literally tilt panel, concrete walls, you might get a little mezzanine floor or something, but there's the maintenance surely would be a lot less than it would be when you have a house that has a kitchen, the wear and tear and the bathrooms and all that sort of stuff.
That's exactly right, James. The majority of the Burleigh industrial properties are tilt slab, but the original industrial estate is called Burleigh Gardens Estate, which is out the end of West Burleigh Road, just on the left before you get to the motorway. Okay. And that's substantially brick and metal with scattered tilt slabs throughout it. So that's mainly a area for vehicles and panel beating, mechanical.
So for the bigger stuff.
And for the what we'd say dirtier industries.
Panel beaters now struggle to even get places, don't they? Like it's quite hard to get the approvals because of the mess it makes.
There are areas where they are approved, and Burleigh Gardens Estate is one of those areas, but it's definitely diminishing.
Yeah, okay.
Their spaces, yeah.
And there seems to be a lot of these big industrial things like we've seen now on West Burleigh Road. They've knocked out what was a big storage yard of rental equipment, and suddenly it's being done as little sheds. Like
that's been a part of the market in the last few years. The price of units has possibly doubled in the last 3 years, which has enabled the developers to...
So hold on, so they've doubled. So, okay, so those units now, they're what, 400 to 500 grand, aren't they? Pretty much, or
I think they're more than that. We're looking at previously about 2,000 a square metre on average. Most sheds vary from 100 to wherever, but say we work on a 150 square metre shed, which is a standard size shed at 2,000 a square metre, which is 300,000, which what it was, 2-3 years ago. Whereas just in the last few weeks, we're consistently getting sales at 3,500 a square metre. So it's just under.
That's a massive difference.
50% increase, just under 100% increase. So now we're potentially talking 550 to 600 for just a standard average industrial unit.
Wow, and a lot of some of these have been sold as like your man sheds. You keep your little old car that you do up, and you have your little pool table. Like some of them are sold like that, but other people are using them for their own business, and some people are setting up their small business in there and things. I've even seen a few. I've seen a couple in Burleigh where people live in them.
They are, and you're allowed to live in one unit in each complex. So if there's 4 units, you can have one as a caretaker, and the caretaker is able to live in one unit, and it can be set up with bedrooms and kitchen and bathrooms.
The guy I know that lives in them, he says it's the quietest place at the weekends. Like,
exactly, weekends.
Yeah, the weekends there is nothing going on. It's like you don't hear a word.
So they've got their car and their boat on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side of the unit they've got their kitchen, and behind it their bedroom and bathroom.
It's different. It's a different lifestyle.
And the 8-ball table and pool table.
Yeah, and the pinball machine and
all those scenarios. Yeah.
So, like, if you say there's, I suppose in commercial, there's all these different facets to it. So we've got the tilts panel stuff out in West Burleigh, and bits of Miami and things like that. But then you've got the retail stuff, which is obviously James Street and Park Ave and Connor Street and all those areas around here and Gold Coast Highway, and that's a whole different kettle of fish with rent, and then a whole different costing on per square metre again, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. You've got a much higher income stream when you're operating a retail outlet, but it brings you higher costs too, of course. Like a purchase in James Street, you're looking between sort of 900 and 1,000 a square metre. So a lot of the shops approximately 40 square metres. So at 1,000 a square metre, it's cost you 40,000 a year to rent that space.
Yeah.
Plus your GST, plus your outgoings.
Yeah.
Again, so it's you need a good turnover to meet your.
You've got to be selling a lot of sushi rolls to pay your rent.
That's exactly right, and you do get quite a high turnover in James Street.
You do. There's certain shops do seem to always change over. Other ones are long and stable, but there's been a change as well. Even some of the banking has gone, like your CBA's gone, Westpac's gone, Suncorp's gone.
There's only a couple left, Bank of Queensland and.
You've literally got BOQ left, haven't you?
Yeah.
That's the only one in there.
Correct.
So it's different. It's the whole village is changing, but it's going to be the difference. I think will be when the tram comes in as well. I think that will.
It's going to put another perspective on it.
It's going to change it again. Yeah.
Yep.
It will. So I mean, if you came to Burleigh Heads now on a weekend, it reminds me of some of those bits in Victoria. I was trying to think of the name of the area. But like it's so busy. Like some of those little coastal towns that you get, it gets so busy. The weekends here are bloody nightmares, aren't they? Sometimes.
Very difficult to get a park on the Esplanade over the weekend. Yeah.
So the Esplanade leads me to something that you do in your spare time. So you're a huge swimmer, yeah?
I've swam all my life, 60 years, I think.
So how far are you swimming? So each morning you're getting up at 6 a.m. or earlier?
I'm a qualified surf lifesaver still, and I do patrols every summer with my patrolling group, and I keep the swimming up to
keep you fit,
to keep me active in that movement. Yeah.
So you jump in the water at Miami near off?
We vary it, James. If the conditions are running south from North Burleigh to Burleigh, well then we swim with the current south, and we did that this morning. We swam south this morning, but it's generally you swim north. You walk down and you swim back. It's about 1.82 k the swim. And
you go out beyond the breakers?
Varies again. We tend to swim in the gutter.
This morning was rough.
It was very rough this morning, but you adjust your stroke for the conditions, and when the sweep's running, some days you can swim from Burleigh to North Burleigh in 16 minutes with that sweep, the big wave coming around Burleigh Point.
And it never pulls you out?
Oh, you've got an outside bank and the shore break.
Right. Okay.
So you do get rips along the way, but you might go out a short way, and then it's always, for life savings information, you always swim through a rip. You'll eventually come out the other side. If you're swimming against it into the shore, that's where you get your drownings, because people swim against the rip and they get tired and it drags them down.
And that's when they drown.
Always swim through it. So we swim through it and you don't get dragged out.
So it's like going, so if your rip's coming this way, you want to be going across it type thing.
If you know you're swimming and not going anywhere, you swim to the left or the right to get out of it, because the rip's formed by the waves coming in on either side of the hole that's formed in the beach. The waves run into that hole, and that's the rip that runs out.
Right.
And it's normally only 30, 40 metres wide, and you can slip out of it.
Have you ever seen any sharkies?
I haven't seen any while I've been out there. I
assure
you, I'm always looking for them.
If he gets eaten by a shark tomorrow, it's not our fault. There's no disclaimers or anything else. But so you know, because they're there, obviously.
I've seen them from cliff tops and looked down on them, but no, I've never seen them out in the water.
I need to improve my swimming and do a bit more, because
it's a great sport.
Oh, it is a good sport, and we're in the perfect place for it. I mean, the water temperature is 21 at the moment, yeah. So
it's warmed up the last couple of weeks.
So it's like it never drops much below it anyway, does it?
No, it gets down to about 18, and it's quite cool because we swim every day over winter as well. We all year round, and it does cool down a bit in the middle of winter.
It's compared to what Tasmania would have been, like that ocean never actually warms up, does it?
Well, I went down to Tasmania last week and I swam in Shane Gould's group. She was an Olympic swimmer, as most people would know.
Yeah. She's
got a group swimming out of Bicheno, which is halfway up the Tasmanian east coast, and I swam there last week without a wetsuit, 13 degrees. But I didn't swim too far, I assure you. I walked out and swam about 6 strokes and turned around and came back to get away from the pain.
That was enough.
Oh, it was cold, but a couple of those guys swim without a wetsuit, even at 13. Yeah, so I think it's just adjusting to the conditions.
I think at school in England, the temperature had to be, if the temperature was above 10 degrees, we had to get in the outdoor pool.
That's cold.
Yeah, it was freezing. These poor kids. He swam quick.
Yes.
Real quick, up and
from
down.
From one side to the other.
Yeah. So, as a commercial real estate agent, right, how do you feel now about our market? How are you feeling about where we're sitting?
The market has never been this strong, James. The sales have taken place. There's not listings coming through to cover those sales, so it's very hard to get into the market at the present time. Properties we have had for sale in the last 12 months, the purchasers have competed and often paid over the asking price.
Just to get the property?
Just to get the property, and that's similarly with our leasing properties as well. And we've listed them at a figure that we think is what is market value, and people are paying $5,000 and $6,000 per annum over the asking price to get the tenancy.
Right. So it's going to be. I think that as we look at where we are now, I think there were figures that came out on some of the news that they said there was 45,000 Victorians have left Victoria, but 40,000 of them have come to Queensland, and a huge portion of them have come to the coast. So we've got to, and I think there'll be pent up demand when all that stuff opens. And I wonder, when you consider the international borders, compared to the rest of the world, we have done pretty well, and you wonder how many of those guys are going to come. So you wonder how long that market stays as strong as it is. There's a point where then people's income is limited, and that's when that rising will stop, yeah?
That's what you'd anticipate, but you just don't know.
You just don't know, do you?
People are happy to buy and land bank and just run with the capital gains.
So what's your biggest tip if you're trying to buy into commercial property right now?
Well, I wouldn't say it's an actual tip, but commercial properties to buy provide you with the outgoings paid by the tenant, as well as the net return. So that gives you a lesser outlay to carry that property. And in some years, commercial properties have been a little bit difficult to lease, but you can eventually lease them.
So there's not much for lease now, is there?
No, it's very little. But just on the mum and dad purchasing a commercial property, if they buy it and the tenant's paying the outgoings, which is the rates, water and body corporate / insurance, the agents and our agency is able to manage that property for the mum and dad buyer and charge the tenant for the cost of that. So
you pass that on, don't you? You pass on the agent's
and that's only
costs.
occurred in the last 3 or 4 years that the laws enabled the purchaser to pass those costs on to the tenant.
Yeah.
So you can get the property, you don't have to worry about it. It's managed by a reputable agency, and the cost paid for by the tenant as well as all the outgoings.
So pretty much, if you're going to have somebody come see you, they're going to hopefully be able to find a property, buy the property, but then you guys will be able to manage it long term and make sure the tenants are on time, organise all that outgoing stuff, break it down, split it between the different tenants.
And we look after all the potential problems as regards electrical, plumbing,
Yeah,
etc.
so you'd have a list of contractors you can use that you trust and have used for a number of years that are going to be, they're going to be fast, they're going to get there quick and do all those things.
We've got about 300 properties on our commercial management base, so we've got a good history. 25 years. Adam Young's been in this area.
It's a lot of commercial properties, isn't it?
It's a big book that he's got.
And you've just gone through, like when you went through COVID, I remember talking to Adam Young about it. Like that was a completely, nobody had gone through it before. It was untouched territory. Nobody knew how to actually deal with it. There was no guidance. It was a real open book, wasn't it? There wasn't anything.
It's been a whole new experience for everyone.
Hell of a ride.
The COVID, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it certainly has. So, if you're a seller of a commercial property, have you got a tip for any of those guys?
The market is strong, and it depends on where the property is. So if you've got what you consider a strong property, well, you'll auction it because you know you're going to generate the purchaser interest. If it's a bit in a bit quieter area, then you tend to expression of interest,
yeah,
or a more quieter marketing campaign.
Okay, so depending on the property, you would auction or not auction. So if you had like a flagship James Street store or something like that, you would auction that because you're going to get the interest, the buzz,
In this market, whether it's James Street or out in the industrial areas of West Burleigh, if you've got a good property,
and Harley Drive and all that. And
yeah, we did an auction just last year on a large commercial property, industrial property in Cordham Drive.
Yeah,
which we had 9 potential purchases, and
9
that went for 2.4 million, and then very strong bidding, and the property was in an excellent position, and it commanded that interest from the buyers.
And who do you have do your auctions?
Justin Nickerson is a well-known.
Yeah, he's very well known. Yeah.
Commercial and residential auctioneer.
Yeah,
he does a
been around
good
a long
job.
time.
Again, there's been 2 big sales in Leader Avenue, which is just on the southern side of the West Burleigh Road, and we had 2 exact same buildings side by side that were sold. One as 4 units strata title, and then the other one as in one line, meaning that the 4 units all owned by the one owner. One went for 3 million. That was the one that was sold in 4 different components, and it made 3 mil. And the one next door sold to an end user who wanted to put his business in, and he bought that for 3.1 million. So they were both about 3,500 a square metre for 865 square metres. So they were substantial properties. But one went at auction individual units, and the other one sold
Just give me, like, there's not that much there. There's only limited land, isn't there?
In Burleigh,
There is
and
only
it's the
limited.
flavour of the month. It's central to Surface and Coolangatta, and as you
The
mentioned,
airport, the motorway, the whole lot.
and you mentioned earlier that southern influx from New South Wales and Victoria is wanting to move to Burleigh, buy an industrial property, and live close to the beach. So
Lifestyle stuff.
lots of demand. Yeah.
I think finally the rest of the country's realised that you don't have to live in a big city with an awful climate.
Yeah.
Sorry, Victoria. But you don't have to. You can live in a city up here and have lifestyle and enjoy all that stuff that we do.
But I love Victoria to visit. And
I
go,
do
go to
too.
the AFL and
Oh,
go to
yeah.
the MCG and
I just hope all those laneways and all the restaurants and everything can come back as well, as because it's been so tough for them. I've had a horrible time.
it was always a great city to visit, Melbourne, and
You'd disappear in all the restaurants are some of the best in the country.
Yeah, they are.
That's the thing. And then the sport, obviously.
yeah, they love their sport.
Oh,
The
don't
Victorians, yes.
Yeah, it's the main thing they'll do. That they have the Herald Sun and they're off on the AFL pages and everything else.
Yeah, exactly.
No, so it's good. Well, thank you so much for coming on the couch.
No, it's been a great session, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it, James.
Thank you so much. Good
You're
to
welcome.
see you. Thank you.
Yeah.
James, Mortgage Choice, Mummy, Burleigh Palm Beach and Brisbane's Bayside, and Mark Eaves from Black & Young in Burleigh Heads. Thank you.